Hey, it's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man here, and I'm swinging by the Geekcast Radio Network.
Okay, sure, I know. Josh Keaton was spectacular Spider-Man, not the 94 Spider-Man, but it's the only Spidey promo we had. Also, huge spoiler warning. Anyone that doesn't want to get spoiled on Amazing Spider-Man 698, 99, and 700, turn it off now, because we spoil the hell out of those final 3 issues of The Amazing Spider-Man.
Octavius? Otto Octavius? It can't be. When I was 10, Uncle Ben enrolled me at science camp, and the man who ran the camp was Dr. Otto Octavius. He was a genius.
But as for you...
Hands up! All of them!
Spider-Man! What are you doing here?
That's simple. You brought him, didn't you?
Me? I never... You web-headed fowler!
Hey, it's nice to see you too, Picklepuss.
You really think your spider powers can compare with the shattering impact of my unbreakable hydraulic tentacles? It was a thought. Don't waste your time thinking. It may very well be the last thought you ever have.
Hello and welcome to yet another Geekcast Radio special episode. This time, we're going to be jumping over to Marvel. I have with me Spade of the Vault Matrix. Hello.
Ooh. How are you?
Huh?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, Steve and I have been reviewing the DC stuff, the Batman books, and everything that's tying into Death of the Family, and I tried explaining a little bit of that to you the other day, and you were like, huh? What? Yeah. But we are here because Amazing Spider-Man ended with issue 700. So in this little introduction, what we're going to do is we're going to give you, the listeners, a brief overview of how we came to know, love, hate, or just tolerate Spider-Man over the years. And then we'll go into, we're actually going to review 698, 99, and 700, all 3 of those books. So how did you... what was your first exposure to the character of Peter Parker, Spider-Man?
Well, actually, my first exposure was thanks to my dad, believe it or not. When I was 9, my father started getting comic books, and he started, bringing home some comic books. And one, I can't remember if it was for, Easter or my birthday, he bought me the Marvel... They had collections called Marvel Masterpiece Collections. I don't know if anybody remembers these, but they encapsulated the first 10 issues of the Fantastic Four, the first 10 issues of Spider-Man, the first 10 issues of Avengers, of X-Men. So he, over the course of a year, bought a bunch of these for me. And that's where I first really got into Spider-Man. Well, I don't want to say really got into Spider-Man. I always thought Spider-Man was interesting, but I was more of an X-Men and Fantastic Four fan. In fact, my first comic book was Fantastic Four number 300, the one where Johnny Storm got married. That was my first comic book, believe it or not, and I've still got it. But over the time, over a couple of years, I started reading some Spider-Man, and then in the early 90s was when the Todd McFarlane run of Spider-Man was released. Mm-hmm. If you guys don't know what that entailed, that was that first issue was where the Lizard really came back and was a real big problem for Spider-Man. In fact, it was the first or second Spider-Man offshoot. He's got like 6 different comics running, and that was the first, and that in the 90s was the first or second. I want to say it was Spectacular Spider-Man in the 90s.
Yeah.
So that was the Todd McFarlane run. That's where he started doing work for Marvel. And a friend of mine would, every Wednesday we would bike over to the comic book store locally here in Baltimore, and we would buy a couple of issues, and I would always buy X-Men, Fantastic Four, and some other Marvel, and he'd buy Spider-Man, Avengers, and some other books. And then we would just go back to one of our houses and just read them all day.
Mm-hmm.
But over the years, though, I started to notice that Spider-Man started to repeat the same. Back then, the word emo didn't exist. Like the most bipolar superhero I had ever seen, even to this day. And I didn't really like that back in the day, especially as a kid. And a lot of folks to this day will call Peter Parker the whitest superhero on the planet. They are actually quite accurate with that.
I would argue that Cyclops is a close second.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Cyclops was definitely that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But over the years, I've kind of paid attention to Spider-Man without reading the comics. I've read synopses, and let's just say he's had some really weird stories. I mean, the Clone Saga, One More Day. Geez, how much retconning can one superhero go through?
Oh, I know it.
I mean, really.
It's just... And it's so, like, I have never, like, these are the first in a long time. 698 to 700 are the first 3 issues of Amazing I've read in probably 15 years. The last Amazing Spider-Man, I remember reading it, was almost like a tie-in or almost a story basically from the old animated series in the 90s. It was something along those lines, or maybe that's where they got the cartoon from, some of the comic stories, but I haven't read the book in years. This year is like my first foray into like comics as far as anything. Because as a kid, I collected, I didn't even really collect comics. I would just, oh, hey, new X-Men or new Spider-Man or whatever else. And I found myself reading some really crazy stuff as a kid. Like, I remember going into Walden Books, of all places. Walden Books. That franchise doesn't even exist in malls anymore. Walden Books, I would go in there and I would look and I would see, X-Men, and I would, see it kind of wasn't related to the animated series, but it had that same obvious style. And I was like, oh, okay, I like that, I like that. And I looked over and I'm like, Spider-Girl, Spider-Man's, what the was that? And I picked up a couple of the Spider-Girl issues and I was like, this is just weird.
Was that in like the late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah, well, Spider-Girl, I would have to look it up. I'm not looking at any information at this point. I think it was 95, 96, somewhere around there. I think.
There have been a couple of Spider-Girls.
Yeah, I don't know. All as I know is it said Spider-Girl, Spider-Man's daughter. That's all I know. I don't remember anything else from it.
First she debuted was 1999.
Oh, really? Huh. Okay, well then, maybe that's...
What If, Volume 105.
Oh, okay.
I think what you're talking about is the... either the Ultimate... No, Ultimates was mid-2000s. Anyway. Yeah, Spider-Girl.
Yeah, Spider-Girl. But I've never really been like that into comics. I don't dislike them, obviously. I like reading them. I've been doing the DC stuff reviews with Steve and stuff like that, but I just it wasn't one of my main focuses. And then over the last couple of years, toys and toy companies have considerably had a psychological effect on myself, and I was like, I've essentially traded toys for comics at this point, where I'm buying more comics than I am toys nowadays.
I will admit the one of the first Marvel, I want to say it was a Marvel. There was a Marvel toy line in the late '90s, early 2000s.
The Toy Biz toy line?
The superposable toy line.
I think that was the Toy Biz one.
I have the original Spider-Man from that toy line, and the reason I bought it was because it had like 29 points of articulation. And it actually came with a spider symbol wall mount that you
that's
nail
awesome.
in the wall or a push pin and put the wall mount on it, and then like Spider-Man could hang off and he could do the web action, and I had that on my wall for years. And some of those toys, like I bought the Venom one and had that next to him, and they were just fantastic figures. Unfortunately, now they're only like 3 inches tall.
Yeah. Yeah. How I really came to know Spider-Man was through the 1994 animated series. Watching that show, as most people might say that it does not hold up today, for me it does. It's not about holding up today. It's about for me watching it today. It's about transporting myself back to a child, being a teenager and watching it. That watching all those old Marvel cartoons is what made me want back then to read the comics, because I wanted to see what other stories they were going to tell besides each episode that was on TV. And then, of course, the Spider-Man films. I like the Sam Raimi trilogy. I think Peter Parker, Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is just way over the top as far as the emo part. It's just...
Disco Spidey, baby.
I know. It's the amazing version and all this and all that. I actually prefer the new film, Amazing, with Andrew Garfield. I like where they're going with that. But that's my extent with Spider-Man. What are your just overall thoughts on the film franchise?
Well, going back to what you said about the animated series, I loved that original animated series to this day. When I was, let's see, I think it was like 13 or 14, and my cousin, who was 31 at the time, actually, he found out that I really liked that series. So what he did was he went back through his collection, and what he would do is he would record all these Spider-Man shows and X-Men shows, and he would record them, and then he would create a duplicate tape of each episode sequentially for me for both Spider-Man and X-Men, and he did that for all the seasons, and I still have those tapes, and that was awesome. And it was just such a good show, except towards the end of its run, it got weird. Like they started to throw like everything at him. It was like, okay, you remember this thing from season 1? Well, it's going to show up again, but in combination with things from season 2 and something earlier from season 3. Oh, but that thing from season 3 never actually aired, since we're airing things out of order, and it's like, and it just got bonkers. And then it went away. And then how many times have they tried to reboot cartoons of Spider-Man?
Well, okay, after the 94 series, in 99 there was Spider-Man Unlimited, which is kind of supposed to be a direct continuation of the 94 series. It's set in that same universe, and then he goes off to Wundagore or whatever, some alternate dimension to save John Jameson, the astronaut. So there was that series. That only lasted 13 episodes. There is the Spectacular Spider-Man series, which stars Josh Keaton as the voice of Spidey. And that lasted, I think, again, I'm not looking at information, I think it was 2 or 3 seasons, might be more. I think it is more. And now they've got Ultimate Spider-Man on Nickelodeon. I think that's still in its first or second season. So there have been multiple Spidey cartoons since the 94 series, and even before then, there was 2 series before that. There was 81's Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends with Bumblebee. Dan Gilvezan is the voice of Spider-Man, and then in the 60s, there was the 67 Spider-Man cartoon as well.
Now, which one was the one where he was teamed up with Firestar and...
That's Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That's the Dan Gilvezan cartoon.
Okay.
That's the 80s cartoon.
And then the original 60s cartoon, and then wasn't there another one?
There might have been. I don't know. Top of my head. There's so many. Yeah.
It just won't stop.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny. Okay, what about the film series really quick before we get into these reviews?
I liked the first one. The second one was okay. The third one was... And then I saw Amazing, and it was all right. Yeah. It was okay. I think the thing that I really liked about it was Gwen Stacy had a brain, and she was a capable character. I loved what's his name? Dennis Leary. He was fantastic
as Captain Stacy. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I loved him, but everything else was just kind of meh. I didn't care for Peter Parker. I did like Uncle Ben, though, but I kind of wanted Uncle Ben to just come back from the dead, just because.
Yeah.
I did like the setting, because it felt like modern day. It felt like how people would actually behave in this situation. But the thing I think I liked the best was the whole crane sequence.
See, a lot of people hate that. They're like, really? They're going to line that up and he's going to be able to swing from all... I thought it was cool, too. I liked it as well.
You've also got to realize, I come from a family from New York City. Yeah. My father was born and raised in New York City. Parts of my mother's family are from New York. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have New York blood in me. That's kind of like... Something like that would actually kind of possibly happen in New York City, because New Yorkers have a very, you're going to F with me? Fine. All right, boys. I mean, they have a very, that's their attitude. And that I could actually see happening.
Yes. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with the book reviews. We'll be back after this.
Good. My neuroneutralizer ray has inhibited your synaptic responses. Now, I finally have the chance to find out who you are behind that mask.
All right, so here's how this whole thing started, ladies and gentlemen. I was like, ooh, Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man's ending. I have to read the final issue. And then I was going to start in on the follow-up series, which we'll get to in a bit. And then you're on Twitter, you're like, you can't just read 700 without knowing what happened the 2 issues before it. And I'm like, all right, fine.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you.
And then the next morning, I sent you the links and downloaded it. And then your brain... proceeded to melt on Twitter.
Pretty much, yeah. Like I said, folks, this is the first time I've read Marvel books in a long time. First of all, the cover for 698, I thought that was the Kingpin.
Oh, I honestly, I really wasn't sure. When I first saw that picture, I wasn't sure who it was, but I knew it wasn't the Kingpin.
Yeah. And in 698, it's got this whole story. There was one page. I'm trying to remember if it was page 13 or I don't know. There was one page in one of these issues that just freaked me the hell out.
Which one?
Oh no, it was page 18 in 698. Page 18 when he reveals the master plan, or kind of reveals the master plan. This whole body switching thing.
No, it wasn't so much a body switching thing.
Well, it was a mind. Yeah, it was a mind switch.
So, just for everybody's knowledge, we are going to be spoiling the hell out of the last 3 issues. If you haven't guessed that already.
Yes. I'll put a spoiler warning at the beginning of the show. But yeah, no, 698 was really really interesting. I love the art in the books. I think the art in 698 was done really really well. As far as the story goes, this is just all kinds of fucked up.
Well, yes, it's Spider-Man. What do you expect? But I do have to agree, the art for all three books was very well done. It was very poignant. It was very direct. The use of the art to convey not just what was going on, but the actual emotion that was going through the characters was very interesting because the way they framed the body language was very well done. It was, if you go back and look at it, just look at the way that Doc Ock's face is manipulating and contorting as he switches from the jovial Spider-Man to his real nature. It's very, very interesting. And especially as you get into 700 towards the end, you see his body language change. And it's very, very good that the artists were able to convey that through the use of just shadowing and just the art and the coloring in general. Just a masterstroke, really.
Yeah. And I love how they do in these issues, and I'm sure they've done it all along, or they might have, I don't know, I haven't read any other back issues besides these, but I love how they do the Daily Bugle headlines, and I think that's really cool.
Oh, yeah, the way they played around with that a little bit. And, what was it? In an interview the writer did with Comic Vine, he said that was something that they liked to do. They liked to play around with tropes that Spider-Man had used in the past and kind of put little twists on them.
Well, I think it's because the world of Spider-Man is so because one of his adversaries is J. Jonah Jameson, who owns the Daily Bugle, who owns J3 Communications. It makes sense.
He's Mayor Bloomberg.
Yeah, sadly.
If you think about it, because now he's the mayor of New York.
Yeah.
So he's Bloomberg. He's Michael Bloomberg. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Michael Bloomberg is a business/technology mogul who is now the mayor of New York City.
Yeah, that's
news and technology mogul. Sorry.
Yes, that's a little strange. But no, I love the art. I love the way the suit looks in comic form. Again, like I said, I haven't read this in a long time, and I just like the way that how overall the art is drawn. There's page 16 where it's that middle panel where it's Spider-Man kind of ducking down and swinging. I think that looks really cool. As far as the story, this was probably more sick and twisted than The Deal with the Devil, because this is just...
Well, the main writer, I can never remember the writer.
Dan Slott.
Thank you. He has said he's going to have to go into hiding after this now.
I don't doubt that.
So why don't we just go ahead and let's get into the story, I think.
Okay. You want to synopsize it there?
Where to begin? All right, so in 698, it is revealed that Dr. Octopus has switched minds with Peter Parker. And what that means is Peter Parker is now in Dr. Octopus's body and is dying. For those of you wondering, what the heck? How did that happen? Back in, what was it, 690 or 690 or 680, somewhere in between there, Dr. Octopus released all of these nano octopus bots in order to improve the world. Well, of course, instead of improving it, he tried to take it over. Spider-Man found a helmet that Dr. Octopus was using to control all of these little robots. He put it on and he kept wearing it. What was happening was while he was controlling those robots, the helmet was mapping out Peter Parker's brain. Then after that happened, then another little mini-series called Spider Island happened.
Mm-hmm.
At the very end of Spider Island, one last little Octobot attacked Peter Parker and switched. How that he did this, I'm not sure, but managed to switch Doc Ock and Peter Parker. So he switched their bodies.
Right.
So, that is the setup. Eventually, it is discovered by both Peter Parker and Dr. Octopus in each other's bodies that they have access to all their memories. So Peter Parker, using the memories of Doc Ock, starts a plan to escape out of I can't remember the name of the prison. The raft.
Yeah, the raft.
Manages to get out of the raft using Hydro Man, Paste Pot Pete, and the Scorpion. Am I missing anybody there?
I don't think so.
Okay, it was those three.
Yeah.
And pretty much hatches a plan to get revenge / get his body back.
Mm-hmm.
Things don't exactly go the way you think it will.
No, not at all. 698 was really, really, really good. I love the way that the writing is going. I just when I first read 698, and I'm thinking, okay, Doc Ock in Spidey's body can't be good at all. But yet, in 698, you see him doing all the normal Spider-Man things. You see him, saving a kid from a falling gargoyle, or you see him do all this stuff, and that's all well and good. You see him interacting with Mary Jane the way that he kind of normally would, but you also see kind of like behind the scenes when no one's looking, where he is snickering to himself saying, ha ha ha, no one really realizes this isn't the real Peter Parker, blah 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 blah. And I like that. I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought it was a really good...
That was in 698, right?
Yeah.
But in retrospect, if you go back and look at it, you start realizing, oh my god, these are all of the tropes of Spider-Man throughout all of the past 40 years.
Yeah.
The saving a kid, the bank robbery, the bank robbery with the stupid costume villain that nobody has heard of.
Yeah.
And the comment he makes to himself, he's like, really? A bank robbery? Really?
Yeah.
And you start to realize, wait, you realize in retrospect, oh my god, this is so the writers just setting everything up, and you really don't realize it at first. And it's really quite ingenious, because you think, oh, the average day as Spider-Man and blah 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 blah. Wait, that's not Spider-Man.
Yeah. It's not. It's so not, because he does take it with the bank robbery guy. He does take it a little further than he should, obviously. And then kind of transitioning into 699, obviously picks up where that left off. But the cover for 699, it's awesome, but it's creepy as hell. It kind of looks like it almost homages, I would think, at least to me, the tentacle arms almost homage what was in Spider-Man 2's Doc Ock, as far as how the arms look on the cover.
Well, these are more pincer arms. The ones in Spider-Man 2 had 3 fingers.
Yeah.
Plus, also, I think it's also a homage. At one point, Spider-Man wears Doc Ock's arms.
Yeah.
At one point. And I can't remember when that was. But if you look, the thing that I really, really like about it is if you look at the cover and you look behind the Amazing Spider-Man, it's a human brain made out of Doc Ock arms.
Yeah.
And it's a brain stem coming down and wrapping around Spider-Man.
Yeah. And then what I also noticed about the cover is that they essentially shred his mask. Not on Spider-Man himself, but up like next to where it says The Amazing Spider-Man. The Spidey logo is shredded.
Shattered. I would say shattered as opposed to...
Shattered, shredded.
Same difference.
Yeah, same difference. But no, I absolutely love the cover. I thought it was great. And then getting into the story.
Continues to be, and the artwork continues to be very, very good. I mean, very, very good.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's so good. Mary Jane looks like she's supposed to look. Spidey looks like the way he's supposed to look. I think you can kind of tell that this isn't the real Peter Parker even before it's kind of revealed. Even if you didn't see a cover of Spider-Man wrapped around with Doc Ock arms, because the Ock version of Parker, he acts like, at least to me, he acts a little bit like what Peter did when he was bonded with the symbiote.
Kind of a dick.
Yeah, pretty much.
Kind of a dick.
Yeah, pretty much. So the story for 699 continues, where they're trying to save and it's so... Okay, I know, like, time in the Marvel Universe is just... You just can't figure it out. But between 698 and 699, how many months or weeks do you think has passed? Because how Ock's body looked in 698, it was deteriorating, but it wasn't deteriorating as much as it is in this was it page 2?
Remember,
no, the page 3 panel.
In 698, he said he maybe had days or maybe weeks to live.
And now it's like, I have hours.
So I would say it's maybe a week. Because if you think about it, when Ock was... I'm not sure how to refer to him now, but when the breakout occurred, Paste Pot Pete added, like, components to Ock. Like, he gave him glasses, he gave him things that were on Pete's backpack to prolong his life. So he's hanging on.
The breakout happened in 698. No, the breakout happens in 699.
Oh, does it in 699?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I would say from 698 to 699, it's maybe a couple hours to maybe a day or two.
Okay.
I mean, I would say it's enough time for Spider-Man to leave the raft, get back to New York City, and I would say it's at least 24 hours. I would say at least 24 hours, maybe 48, maybe. Yeah. But it's not long. But then from 699 to 700, I would say maybe a day or two, maybe a week, maybe.
Yeah.
And that's something that interviews that Dan Slott has stated. Time is all screwed up in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah. That's I mean, in both of the big companies' universe, time is all kinds of messed up. So, so the story here is that they use Hydra Man. What's the Pete guy's?
Paste Pot Pete.
Okay, Paste Pot Pete. I thought you said Pissed Pot Pete. Okay,
that's a completely different supervillain.
Yeah, exactly. So they use these guys to help Peter and Ock's body escape, and he's gonna go after Spidey Ock. That's the best way I can call Ock and Spidey's body. But that's the whole thing for issue 699 is he's coming to the realization. There's a couple of pages where he's talking to the Lizard, and he finds out all this stuff, and then he's like, ooh, I need to stop him from ruining my reputation as as Spider-Man. So I need to get out of here. So let me, use my brain and use Doc Ock's memories and get all this stuff going. What I find interesting about the Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and Doc Ock, like, memory thing, it reminds me of a Dean Koontz adapted movie from one of his books called Hideaway. It was starring Jeremy Sisto and a bunch of I think Alicia Silverstone was the daughter in it. In that, he is Jeremy Sisto's character, and Jeff Goldblum, who was also in his character. They are linked to each other. Like, one is like on God's side and one is on the devil's side, kind of thing. But they can see what each other is doing, and that's what the whole memory thing is to me in these last 3 issues, where they can Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus can see each other's memories, and I thought that was really, really cool and really strange at the same time.
Well, it makes sense, especially from a scientific standpoint, because if you think about it, memories are nothing more than electrical impulses stored in certain parts of the brain. If you're doing a mental transfer of sorts, the parts that make up who you are as a person in the brain have nothing to do with the memory sectors. Nothing to do. So you could effectively just dump it in there, and the memories you could still technically access, but at the same point, memories don't work like that. You don't just remember something that way. You have to have like a trigger to remember something, I think. I mean, that's how I remember things.
Yeah.
And obviously we don't exactly know how the brain works. We're not quite there yet. But this is one of those things where I go, okay.
You can't just step into a machine and have your brain mapped so, someone can stick a box in your forehead and, oh wait, that was Batman Forever, sorry. Hey, at least I didn't reference another Batman movie. But anyway.
You referenced a bad Batman movie. That's bad enough.
No, Batman Forever was not it wasn't the greatest Batman movie, but it was not the worst. Anyways. What did you think of the story for 699?
699 was okay. The problem with 699 is the first half of the comic was nothing more than one gigantic exposition dump.
Yeah.
And that was a problem for me. I think that was a little bit dumb. But overall, it was okay. I think it was that middle chapter that comics really have a hard time doing. I mean, they've got to bridge the gap between the previous issue and then the next issue.
Yeah, I'm kind of finding that with some of the Bat books, with the Death of the Family thing, where the 15 issues for last month in December over in DC, those were all expositional books. And 699, like you said, the first half is pretty much all exposition of how did Doc Ock manage to do this, and the rest of it is Peter trying to figure out how he's going to get out, and then the breakout.
It's just an issue with comic books in general. They don't move the story along, I think, fast enough. They're too worried about, oh, did you miss last issue? Okay, here's all the information. Info dump.
Yeah. Yeah. So issue 700, the grand finale.
And again with the info dump. Oh God, more info dump.
Okay, but I can forgive the info dump in 700 because of the fact that it is not your average. It's not your average comic, because the main story, instead of 20, 22, 25, 30, or 40 pages, it's 52 pages for the main story.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, it's so huge. I love the cover. The cover is so awesome.
Which the main one, right?
The original cover, the spider eye with, if you zoom in, it's all the different characters from the entire series, all of the different Spider-Man suits.
Yep.
Yeah, love that cover.
That is a great cover.
Yeah, next month in February, I am so going on. I don't care. I'm so going on Amazon, and I don't care if I have to pay $15 for the issue. I'm getting that cover because I want that cover. So awesome. But 700 is it. It's the final issue of the Amazing Spider-Man for Marvel. Um, the story takes such a interesting twist. I don't know where they're gonna go with this. I have no clue. I know I've heard from a lot of people that they just don't care to read Doctor Octopus as Spider-Man in the upcoming series of Superior Spider-Man. But if you think about it, with the way that this issue lays out, this Peter Parker, the Doc Ock Peter Parker, he is a super genius. Okay, regular Peter Parker, he's a genius in his own right, but Doc Ock is like 10 times more a genius than Peter is. And you combine that with the spider powers, that's just an amazing Spider-Man. Forgive the pun, but I mean, that's just one of those things where it just seems like it would fit so well.
And I found it very interesting that, well, in 700, you have the culmination of the story. Yeah. And then there was it Spectacular Spider-Man 15.1? Was that the other comic?
The backup?
No, it wasn't a backup. It was the bridge between Amazing and Superior. For those that don't know, Marvel is doing a .1 series of comics, which are these little one-shots. They're maybe 15 to 20 pages, maybe, that act as either bridges or bring up to speed readers so they avoid the info dump while profiting from you at the same time. So,
are you talking about the story where it's the grandfather and the grandson?
No, not that. Okay. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about a separate comic that completely shows, okay, 700 has happened. Here's a little bit time later where Doc Ock is thinking about being Peter Parker. He's living Peter's life. He's starting to become a superhero. He stops a guy from stealing somebody's purse by pretty much just putting his arm out and the guy runs into it. He rebuilds the web shooters. He goes back to one of his old hideouts and realizes there is no way that I, as Dr. Octopus, could ever beat Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because Spider-Man has things like the spider sense, like the strength that he never realized that Spider-Man had, just the experiences that Spider-Man has been through. You know, all of Doc Ock's gloating was for nothing because he could actually never beat Spider-Man, no matter how smart he was.
Yeah. See, that's the one thing I don't get about about the mind swap for this whole story is how does Doc Ock in Spider-Man's body, how does he have, okay, yes, I understand he has the powers, but like, how does he have the Spidey sense? You know what I mean? It's like, that's one of the things that just kind of...
The spider sense is purely physiological. It has nothing to do with whose mind is in that body. It is purely physiological. It is a physiological reaction to whatever is around you. It's the same, it would be the same as if, say, we switched bodies and your hair, and you in my body, your hair itched. The top of your head was itchy.
Okay.
It's purely just physiological. It has nothing to do with memories. And he even stated in that one-off that spider sense, and he made a quote of something. It's like, I'm still getting used to it. It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so strange. It's so strange to me. I don't know, 700. I love how they incorporate everybody in his past in the story without actually like bringing them back, and they homage them, but they don't. You know what I mean? Where it's
The
like,
whole heaven-esque thing.
yeah, yeah. I thought that was really cool.
Really cool, and just a little bit of foreshadowing.
Well, yeah, but foreshadowing has to happen a little bit. But I think one of my favorite pages from this one was page 13, where it's the Uncle Ben scene, and it's at the bottom where he's like, "You need to get up and fight one more time. Come on, Peter, get up." I love that, just that whole thing of, and you don't really see like the whole thing with Uncle Ben. Okay, he dies. That's it. To my knowledge, they've never like actively resurrected Uncle Ben. He's always stayed dead. Sure, he's come back in like flashbacks or
As a ghost.
dream sequences or stuff like that. But it's not like who can I? It's not like killing Jean Grey and then having her resurrect herself as the Phoenix. It's not like that with Uncle Ben. So the story goes that, Peter has to figure out a way to stop Doc Ock in his body, and he gets to him, and he basically says that, hey, look, he pulls the Uncle Ben line. With great power comes great responsibility, and you can't just be like, if you're going to stay in my body, you have to be me. You can't be yourself anymore. You're not Dr. Octopus anymore. You are Peter Parker, Spider-Man.
And through that interaction, you see Peter Parker reliving like the most poignant parts through the years.
Yeah.
But it was Dr. Octopus remembering those parts, and it was like Doc Ock as a young kid in high school. Doc Ock as the Spider-Man with that ginormous piece of machinery on him, as the base where he was in floods, the part where he's fighting Venom as, Doc Ock. And that was really interesting as he goes through all these memories and realizes what Peter Parker has actually been through, and comes to the realization of, holy crap,
I don't want this.
Yeah, he's like, no, I don't want, no, I do not want this. No, thank you.
Yes.
Return to fucking sender. And it pretty much comes up to, you were me now, buddy.
Yeah. Because Peter Parker in Ock's body dies.
Yep.
And the final page, well, not the final, the second to last page is farewell, Peter Parker. Know this, I will carry on your name. You may be leaving this world, but you are not leaving it to a villain. I swear, I will be Spider-Man. Better yet, with my unparalleled genius and my boundless ambition, I'll be a better Spider-Man than you ever were. From this day forth, I shall become the superior Spider-Man.
So it ended on a heroic yet rather arrogant ending.
Yeah. Well, I don't think... Okay, we know at times, as we've said before, Peter Parker, the original Peter Parker, could be a dick when he wanted to be. And I don't think, Octavius as Parker, as Spider-Man, as the superior... I don't think the arrogance is misplaced there, because, sure, he's not going to be a villain anymore, but he can still be an arrogant super/anti-hero a bit.
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting way to go.
Yeah.
And look, I know there are a lot of people that love Spider-Man. A lot of people do. But you have to acknowledge that for 40 years we have had the same character. He has not grown or evolved in 40 years.
Right.
Now,
And
in comic terms, he's what? Maybe 30?
yeah.
So, no, yes, a lot of stuff has happened to him. I will definitely concede that. But this is going to be an interesting change, and I really am excited to see where this goes. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah. I'm interested to see where it goes, but at the same time, it kind of brings up so many questions. Like, okay, say for anyone that doesn't read these last 3 issues and just starts Superior.
I feel bad for them.
Well, yes, I know. But what I'm saying is, like, my question would be to that new reader or that reader that, picks it up starting with Superior, be like, my question to them would be, okay, so what do you think? Do you think this is the real Peter Parker or not, if they hadn't read these 3 issues? And see, that's the thing. If Ock is going to keep Peter's name and keep Peter's life, are they really okay, yes, Ock has different motivations. Ock will have different ways that he handles stuff, obviously, as we've seen in these 3 issues, but keeping the same name and character name and superhero name, how are we... That's the one thing that's going to be interesting to me to see, is how they deal with, oh, it's Peter, he's changed a little bit. That's all. This isn't the Peter we knew and loved, but this is a Peter we know and know and can grow to love. That's my question, is with them keeping the Peter Parker and Spider-Man names, is how are they going to differentiate from Ock's version to what the original was?
That remains to be seen.
Yeah.
I mean, in the little one shot I was talking about earlier, Ock Parker mentioned that he started talking about Mary Jane. He's like, Parker, so stupid having Mary Jane around. She's such a liability, but good God, that woman. He's like, hot damn.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm super interested to see what happens with Superior. We at the GCRN are in the process of coming up with our own separate comics podcast feed in the future. Depending on how Spada and I feel after we read the first couple issues of Superior, we may or may not do reviews of that. At this point, it's probably no, because we haven't read the book and we don't know what's going to happen. But 700 was simply amazing. I'm not a fan of comics in general, and I don't like when DC does this, and I know it's a tie-in to whatever they're doing, but I don't like backups. Like, if I buy an issue that says, this is the story, I expect that last page to be the end, okay, minus ads, but I expect that last page to be the end. And I started, because after the end page here in 700, I'm like, ooh, there's more. What the hell more is there? And then there's there's like 2 or 3 different stories in 700 of, like I said before, this grandson and grandfather, and then there's like an anime story of the Black Cat, and it's just that, like, if I eventually have this issue, or if I was reading it, the physical copy, that probably would have taken me out, like, what the hell is going, because it's like they don't give you anything. Like, in that backup story that starts, they don't give you they give you nothing. The only thing it says is Chicago, once upon a time in the future. They don't say what future. They don't, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't like backup stories.
3000.
Do what?
Nothing. You missed the joke. You are lame. Actually, I'm probably the lame one for making it.
Yes, you are. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's what a way to go out. What a way to be able to continue the story, or to continue on with the character. It's in some capacity, and we'll see what happens. Any other final thoughts?
700. Well, first off, I have to say that the writer Dan Slott has been reported by a couple of outlets, has been getting death threats because of this. IO9.com is reporting that he's had quite a few death threats, actually. Yeah. So I can understand where a lot of people are going bananas. But guys, It's a comic book. Just grow up. That being
Yeah,
said,
I mean,
that being said, I think this was a good story. I liked it. I'm actually kind of glad it took the direction that it did.
yeah,
Could there have been things that were done better? I could have done without the exposition dump in 699, but it was building to 700, and 700 was a damn fine comic.
yeah.
And this I really like. I really, really liked this change because Spider-Man needed to change. If Spider-Man was Peter Parker and he was just going to be Peter Parker, I wouldn't be reading it. And now that they've made this change, I want to see where they go with this.
Yeah, yeah. Because they've essentially taken a villain and they've had to turn him into a hero. Because if you're obviously unless Doc Ock is gonna pull a Krang and build his own new body
or pull a Thunderbolts. Now they didn't just make a villain a hero. They have put a villain in the shoes of quite possibly the most popular hero in Marvel.
Yeah. Well, he is their flagship character. As far as single characters go and not teams, Spider-Man is their flagship character, just like Superman,
next to
Batman,
Wolverine.
and Wonder Woman are DC's flagships.
Yeah, I'd say Marvel's are Wolverine, Spider-Man, and that's all I can think of.
See, I see Marvel differently. I see them whereas it's more so Spider-Man, the X-Men, the core X-Men, not like every single one ever, but the core team, and then obviously the Avengers, and maybe Iron Man. Marvel has more, mainstream. I mean, DC has a lot of mainstream characters, but when you think DC, you're thinking of Superman or Batman or Wonder Woman. You're not, some people might think Green Lantern.
But that's about it.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So we'll have to see what happens. We will let you guys know whenever the comic show does come up. We haven't worked out all the details on that. Any other final thoughts before we close out?
Nope.
All right, so there you go. That's our review on Spider-Man 698 to 700. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will catch you next time.
See ya.
One more place that you must visit.
Where to now? I think she means my reality. What am I going to find there?
More than you can ever imagine.
I don't believe what you're telling me. In your reality, I'm a character in fiction? Yep, and I'm an actor who plays you on TV. But there's someone here I knew you had to meet. He's the man who created you for fans all over the world.
And I said to Jack, what if his skin turns green?
Excuse me. I'm looking for some guy named Stan Lee.
What? Spider-Man? Pam, hold my calls for a while. I think I've finally gone crazy. Oh, man! Wow! You know, Spidey, I've always wanted to experience real web-slinging.
And I've always wanted to be appreciated as a real hero. It seems you've made me into one. Thanks.
Hey, don't mention it. After saving all of reality, where do you go from here?